again for a community update. I want to make sure I get a good angle with all this stuff. That's I'm thinking about it. It's like I know take the time. Yeah. Takes a little while. Yeah. It's like it's my time. So yeah. I mean obviously shifted. Like water and stuff, like places that I'm doing and it's still like $1,200 on Tuesday, but it's also like everyone I can and now that you know, I really liked it. I mean, there's a reason why I work. I like working. No, I think two because when they get covered. So we have. But next year, definitely one thing I want to do. I definitely want to see at the beginning. So these are, I think, so I just gotta study on it. I'll be around.
All right, everyone. We're going to get started. If you could make your way to a seat. Can you hear me online? thank you. All right, we are streaming on Facebook as well. So welcome everyone here. Thank you for coming tonight. As everyone knows, we have a special guest to speak with us tonight. But before we get to that, we have a little bit of business to take care of. So we're going to do those items first, and then we'll hear from our Lieutenant Governor, and then we'll get some updates from our elected officials after that. All right. All right, so first order of business is we're going to skip approval of minutes. Our secretary could not be here tonight. And we do have the treasurer's report that's in everyone's email. And so once anyone feels so moved, I will take a motion to accept the treasurer's report as submitted.
So moved.
Second?
Second.
All those in favor say aye. And just, I figure since we're doing the treasurer's report, I'll acknowledge that our Lieutenant Governor added a little something to the coffers today, $1,500 for the DTC. So thank you. That was not a requirement for them. And also, I just want to recognize we have the president of the Southern Connecticut State University College Democrats here to prove it. We're going to stand up. All right, great. I know somebody wants to make an announcement, right?
Yeah, so our next e-board meeting is going to be on Tuesday, May 20th, and we'll be discussing the sixth grade latest resolution there. So thank you to everybody on the issues committee that's been working so hard on that. It's also great to see everybody.
Great, thank you. And we'll have the issues committee a little bit later speak to that a bit as well. And we have Kyle here from Six Lakes Committee that could, see a few words as well about all the work that's been going on around things there. And you can speak as well about Eli's talk. All right. We have Travis here. Travis, why don't you come on up? We're going to get an announcement of the pick to fill the vacancy on the 9th District DTC, and the 9th District Chair, Travis, is here.
Hi, good evening, everybody. Yeah, we had a vacancy because Betsy Rosenblum stepped down. We voted, and Ty Richardson will be taking the seat. So, welcome, Ty. He couldn't make it tonight. He's on vacation and traveling back. Thank you.
All right, and I'm going to recognize Jen Pope from the 6th District for their pick to recommend to the Legislative Council their choice to fill the vacancy on the council from the 6th District. The chair of the 6th District, Megan Gosselin, is unable to hop on right now. She is watching. She is on Zoom now.
Hi, everybody. Excited to announce that the 6th District has chosen a really wonderful candidate who actually was recommended by Paula. And I think she will be a really great replacement to fill the end of Paula's term. And just a quick note about the process. We've never replaced someone in our district before, and I don't think it comes up that often, thankfully. So we wanted to make sure we were following the correct process. And we reached out to the state party attorney to get their advice both on our rules and also the state party rules to make sure everything was followed correctly. So the 6th District would like to recommend Renee Hoff to fill that position. She's a new face to our group. We're really excited to have more people involved. She's a social worker, and I think she'll do a really fabulous job carrying out the end of this term, and I hope she considers sticking around and running in November as well. So with that, I will make a motion for the DTC to affirm our selection of Brendan Hoff. And
I second that.
thank you.
All right. Yes.
Is there an opportunity for a nomination from the floor also?
We're gonna take this motion first, and then if you wanna make a motion after that, we can do that.
If the motion was to affirm her, so how can you then open up the floor after she's been affirmed?
Is there somebody you'd like to nominate?
Yes.
Are you okay with that?
My understanding is the 6th district makes the recommendations,
We
and
will.
for our district.
We wouldn't be able to accept that, you know, even if we voted on it, because it has to come from the 6th district.
The
But,
rules on,
you know.
the DTC rules say when there is a townwide.
It's a townwide vote.
DTC rules say when there's a townwide vacancy from a Democratic person, from a Democrat, that the DTC puts forward one nomination, at a meeting called for that reason, but it doesn't say that it has to come from that specific district, because it's not necessarily, it's not, the rule isn't for only positions that are representing just one district.
It's not a town-wide vacancy.
It
It's
is,
a
the
district.
legislative council is
Well,
is a townwide.
There are district
Right.
representatives and there are at-large that represent the whole town.
How about
I
this?
mean, we consulted with the state attorney, so if people have problems with it.
Here's what we'll do, we're gonna have the vote of affirmation, the motion is on the floor, and if less than a majority, if a majority vote against the nomination, then we'll open it up, and that'll still have to be kicked back to the district anyway,
So
but we can do that.
the rules say whenever the HDTC is officially notified that a town office held by an elected Democrat has become vacant, the HDTC shall, by majority vote of members present at a meeting called for that purpose, endorse a single candidate to fill that town office and certify that endorsement to the proper town official in a timely fashion.
Yes, and we're gonna have that vote right now. Right?
No. But if you're following Robert's rules and you're making a nomination, then you should then open it from the floor for other nominations.
My understanding would be that the sixth district had a nomination and voted on an individual. They're bringing it before us today for affirmation.
But that's
The
not what the
nominating
rules say.
process isn't happening here. The nominating process happened within the sixth district.
It says the
Right,
town
so
office.
here's what we'll do.
It says town
I will
office,
make a
doesn't say
ruling.
town-wide, it says town office.
I will make a ruling as chair that we're gonna go ahead with this vote, but if someone wants to object to that, then we can have a vote on that.
I object.
I object.
I object.
I object.
All those who want to sustain the chair's ruling, raise your hands if you're a DTC member.
Go forward with the vote.
To go forward with the affirmation vote.
No, that's not what he asked. So we just have bylaws for no reason.
This is just a ruling on Robert's rules. So, you know what? They didn't raise their hand. You know what? We didn't accept another nomination. Because I don't think it's gonna matter anyway. So, are you okay with that?
Why are we asking that? Like, I'm having a hard time.
Because there's a motion on the floor right now.
Right, but it's my understanding that the districts come together, like, it's within one district, and there's a leader district. This is just a tradition thing, where the district is able to put forth a nominee. And I think that's fine, to have it put forward a nominee, but then we can, if someone else wants to be nominated, this is the time for that to happen, with that nominee. So I feel like you're trying to push forward tradition over rules.
I don't think that's what we're doing, but,
Clarification. So, Jen, since you spoke with State Central, what was their commentary? What information did they provide us?
Their commentary, I could read it directly. It says
That
the
would be
district votes for the district. I can go.
Is State Central always trustworthy? I mean,
That's the question.
They have their own bylaws that we adhere to.
State Central.
But that's a separate conversation.
True.
They have bylaws We have our bylaws don't supersede theirs.
I think somebody was saying.
The person I would like to nominate is from the sixth district also.
The answer is only the district may vote.
Some states
No,
don't.
it's not. So then what are we doing? Then if only the district can vote, then.
We're just voting to affirm that, so the whole, as a whole body, we're voting to affirm their vote. I think any of us in any of our districts would want the same process to happen. I know when it happened to fill a vacancy in the sixth district and to fill a vacancy in the second district in recent times, that's the process. that
If we had a
follows.
vacancy in the first district, I'd be more than happy to follow what Tiffany's saying right now too. And that way it opens it up.
It's the
I wouldn't
bylaws.
take State Central's authorization for that.
Well, how about this instead? Let's just, really, we're only gonna forward a name that goes to the sixth district anyway, and I feel confident that the body's gonna support that. So I don't mind taking another nomination off the floor, or we can just, yes. Go ahead. Well, I don't wanna, so the problem with tabling is this vacancy's been there for a while, and we're trying to fill the vacancy. Who's that, Lane? Yes, Lane?
I just want to tell you. A lot of people from the sixth district call me and say, where's our representative? We want somebody from the sixth district representing us now. And we're not, and as the committee from the sixth district, we have vetted different people. We'd like to have, I've been on the DTC for 30 years. We have never had a situation where somebody just comes and says, well, I want to nominate Joe Schmo from whatever district you want.
No, I didn't say that. I said the person is from the sixth district. I didn't say from whatever district.
But it's not coming from just you. You don't live in the sixth district. You live in the fifth district.
No, I don't.
Where do you live?
Are you assuming that I'm black? I live in the fifth district?
Oh, thank you.
Oh my God.
She's basing what she's saying off of the bylaw, who you are. She's basing it off of the bylaw, what she said. She may come out of nowhere.
It's the fifth district. We do it all the
Basing
time.
it off of the bylaw. But those bylaws were written in a general perspective, not
Right.
in a, not
They're
for
the
the district.
DTC bylaws.
They were written
They're the
for us to
DTC
follow
bylaws.
that guideline. That is the guideline. If that wasn't the case, then the bylaws need to be changed. Because she's saying what is in the bylaws. She didn't make it up. Well, I was on the bylaw committee. It doesn't matter. Then you should fix that. You did. We should be following what is in the bylaws. not what
All right,
we think.
so here's what we're gonna do, and just for clarification, there were initially two candidates. Initially there was one, then there was an additional candidate, and the sixth district decided to delay the process to hear from everyone, and that additional candidate withdrew. So there was no other candidate that approached the sixth district for the seat that is currently seeking that seat, to be clear. So what we're gonna do is we're gonna have a vote of affirmation, that's my ruling on that.
I'm
And
gonna
that's
speak
following
because I'm
state
actually the
central.
candidate that is gonna be nominated. So I'm Grace Fidelio, nice to meet you. Some of you may know me, some of you may not like me very much. Some of you may love me, some of you may not know who I
Hey,
am.
Grace,
I'm speaking.
Grace,
Fine, I wanted to.
Hey, Grace,
You can't just speak from the
yeah.
audience.
Well, I think it's strange.
We're gonna follow our rules here.
You're gonna follow your rules in the instances that it's convenient for you, but not in the instance that I'm bringing up about the rules.
She should probably be allowed to speak.
You're being president, she's not representing you, you need to recognize her. Now you're ready.
No,
So, hold on, to be clear, hold on, order. We have rules on DTC, and on those rules, DC members speak.
I apologize for not respecting the rules of your.
All right.
Sean,
Yes,
if I may,
yes.
a separate motion. Allow us to vote on if you will allow another nomination. That way it's fair, it's up to the DTC.
That's what I was moving on before, let's do that. So, all those that, would like to allow another nomination in the 6th district, you're gonna have to raise your hand and keep your hand raised so we can record it and see what numbers we have.
Democracy.
Yeah, this is for DTC members.
We're losing our democracy.
Yes. Count them out. Out loud would be nice. One.
Okay.
I'm one.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15. Am I getting that right? 15?
Don't forget folks on the-
Anybody online?
No. Yeah, only DTC members hopefully should have their hands raised. All right, all those who do not want to allow additional nomination, raise your hand.
Chris, it wasn't even you.
If you're gonna take a pick, I want to vote.
Oh my God.
Online, you can vote as well.
That's not me.
Karen, did you get Karen? And Megan and Diane, you want to vote? All right, we're gonna have to roll call it. Sorry. It's democracy. Yeah.
All right, we're gonna do a roll call. Dan Garrett. Dana, Kennedy.
I didn't know.
You can abstain if you'd like.
Yeah, because I don't know what I'm doing.
It just allows another candidate to run instead of just one candidate.
All right.
Eleanor.
Open it.
Carrie. Bradford. Brendan. Tatiana.
Is she online? Can you tell her?
Tatiana abstains.
Nathan.
Yes.
Diane. Hoffman.
Hi, you know what, the audio is really garbled. I'm having a hard time following the whole conversation, and I didn't even understand who Jen had nominated. I know this is a different question, but it's been really hard for me to understand the whole conversation. The audio is not good.
The 6th district nominated Renee Hall.
Okay, and the question is, and you're saying that people that don't live in the 6th district can vote whether or not another person can be nominated
That's the question.
from outside?
That's the question. Yes, well, the question is, can folks in the broader DTC outside the 6th district DTC nominate someone for that position?
But the person would live in the 6th district that was being nominated?
That would be a requirement for sure.
Okay,
Dominique Reyes,
Yes.
Joe Reyes,
Yes.
Brian Murphy, Eric, Ned,
Yes.
Steven,
Steven?
Yes.
Are we, is it a vote or is it, are we, like, what's?
Lori Sweet,
Yes.
Information about the bylaws.
Rhonda Caldwell,
No, listen,
I'm a yes.
Alan Graham, Sharon Kylie, Sharon Kylie, sorry. Megan Goslin,
Yes.
yes. Skylar Daniels,
Should not have.
Elaine Dove,
No.
Jen Pope.
No.
Ben Skolnick. Lynette Diggs. Tracy. Sean Grace.
No.
Brianna Nickens. Gary Tenney.
No.
Chris Ashley.
No.
Karen Bivens.
No.
Kristen Dolan.
No.
Tiffany.
yes.
Alexa. Travis Weber.
No.
LaShonda Howard.
Yes.
No, no.
Yeah, she's not gonna, she's trying.
Do we miss any DTC members? Have we called
Here after it.
Sean?
Yes, she voted.
No, Sean Harris. Yes.
Sean Harris,
Do you want to call him Sean Harris?
Sean Harris too.
Sean Harris is.
So we're voting on whether, are you in the sixth district? You're nominating somebody that is in the sixth district? Okay, so we're gonna know if someone that's not in the sixth district can nominate somebody that's in the sixth district.
That's the whole.
The bylaws,
whole
that's what
thing
the
about
bylaws say.
They don't say who can nominate and who can't nominate. They say that it's open to the DTC to select someone to put
The
forward
members.
to the LC.
I'll go show
No, this is not. There's a motion on the floor and we're taking a vote, like that's not.
We're just adding.
What is he showing him though? That's not part of.
Yes.
No, I'm not saying. What's the point? Like, I don't know anything about Robert's Rules of Order.
So basically it's like this. So the person that's not in the sixth district will nominate somebody from the sixth district.
Yes, that's better.
The person that's being nominated is in the sixth district.
So Sean, we're taking a vote now, so
So I would say yes.
yes. Okay, all right. So we're gonna accept the nomination. That was the deciding vote right there. So that's what I get down to. All right, so what is your nomination?
I nominate Grace Teodosio.
Okay, is there a second for that?
Second.
Okay. All right, so we will have those two names and I guess we'll go by roll call, whether we're going with Renee Hoff or Grace Teodosio for,
Question.
yeah.
Can we just hear from both of the candidates and ask why they
Yeah,
think
that's
they
actually
should be
60.
on the council?
Um,
Help us with our
Because
vote.
we really don't know.
Well,
anything. I don't know.
yeah, how would you know, right? So, all right, I guess since we're going this far, I guess we'll give a 1 minute. We gotta get moving on the meeting. Grace, you go first, 1 minute.
Sure. Hi, can you come up here? Oh, sure. I live in First off, I'm very sorry for the
Just so the Zoom people can hear you, if you go over to the over by the speakers.
You stand over here.
Yeah.
Hello. So first off, I apologize to everyone I'm upsetting by running. I understand that that's frustrating, different than you're normally used to, but I'm not trying to come in here to upset the DTC. I'm trying to come in here because I believe our town needs some change, and I'd really like an opportunity to be on the council to help instill that change. So if you don't know me, I live in the 6th District. I recently started a Facebook group called Hamden Residents Unite. We have over 1,000 members. I originally started a position, and I believe that energy is what's bringing conversations to the table from both the council and from our administration to make changes to address the serious inequities in our budget and how that's affecting us as taxpayers. I understand that I am ruffling feathers. I am not everyone's cup of tea. As you can see, there's a lot of opposition to me even speaking with you tonight. I did originally have a nomination with the 6th District. Chris Ashley is absolutely correct, and I did withdraw that. I withdrew that and had a conversation with Megan Dawson about that because I did not feel I was really being fairly put up based on a lot of factors that I don't really need to get into here today. I wasn't even going to run today. Someone reached out to me today about it because they said, why are you letting yourself be thwarted when you could be a voice on this council to help make a difference in the town? So I'm here to say that I'm interested in being supportive of you as my community. About my sister Richard, I showed that I can rally, listen to all the voices in my community, and be a voice for them, and that's what I intend to do. I'm not here to ruffle feathers just to ruffle feathers. I just like to make a difference. If I'm not the right representative, I will respect and honor the other candidate that's nominated, and I would also love to give them access to my platform, which I told Megan, so that our people in the 6th District can hear from them and be represented by them. If I'm the best candidate, I would accept your vote. Thank you very much for your time.
How long have you been a Democrat? Can I ask you a question of the candidate?
We're not gonna get into that. That'll take forever. Sorry.
Then we're gonna ask questions. Everybody's gonna get a question.
All right,
For a month.
For a month, I talked for a month. Relax.
Chris Ashley, he's angry.
Hello,
He's angry.
my name is Renee Hawkins, and I'm the candidate that they wanted to nominate. I appreciate the passion, but I also think that I'm the best candidate. And let me tell you what, I have always been a lifelong Democrat. I have lived in Hamden since 1999. I come with you with a fresh perspective, willing, ready, and able to work for the system. I don't have any young children. I have a lot of time. I'm the manager for the Department of Children and Families. I've been there for almost 40 years, and I have a lot of passion for the town of Hamden. I want to work. I want to come. I want to sit in this. This is my first introduction to something being a little bit sticky as far as this particular situation involving me. And I think that I'm ready and able to work with you. If you will. So Grace, however it comes out, if it's you, I'll work with you. If it's me, let's work together.
You were invited to my space.
So cool.
All right, thank you. All right, now we're gonna do another roll call. Yeah, they just say they're voting for it. They want to nominate us,
Okay, so we're gonna roll call on who you're voting for. So Jane Garrett,
Renee, I'm sorry.
Yes, please say the name.
Renee.
Dana. Bradford. Tatiana.
What was the question?
Are you voting
They
for
can't hear them.
Renee or Grace?
Grace.
Who was the first one?
Grace.
It's Grace Teodosio, and the second one was Renee Hall.
That was great.
Nathan.
Grace.
Diane Hoffman.
Grace.
Evan Stewart.
Renee.
Dominique Baez.
Miss Renee Hall.
Joe Baez.
Renee Hall.
Brian Murphy. Eric. Ned. Steven. I'm voting for Renee. Lori Sweet.
Grace.
Rhonda.
Grace.
Alan. Sharon Kylie.
Renee.
Megan.
Renee.
Did you get that contract yet? Yeah, go ahead, Corey. Let's just. Okay. Yeah, I'm gonna mute you, Corey.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, yeah. Andrea?
I vote for Grace, please.
Thank you.
Skylar Mar.
No.
Elaine.
Renee.
Jen Pope.
Renee.
Ben. Lynette. Tracy. Chandra.
Renee.
Karina. Gary. Chris Ashley. Karen Bivens. Kristen Dolan.
Renee, please.
Tiffany. Alexa. Travis. Michelle Howard.
Grace.
Oh, Sean. Sarah. You can abstain.
Okay. All right, congratulations, Renee.
Make Chris Ashley happy.
And we have a lot of conversations ahead of you with the legislative council, because as a reminder to everyone, this is ultimately a recommendation to the council, and we're grateful for them for listening to it, but they ultimately make the decision here. All right, so thank you very much.
Thank you.
All right. So, 7:42, and now we look into our guest of honor, our lieutenant.
All right, well, good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and we have seen democracy in action, and sometimes it's messy, but we get through it, and I'll just say, as someone who always champions women running for office, nice to see two fabulous women who want to run and serve, so thank you both, and I wanted to come today to talk about how Governor Lamont and I are fighting the Trump administration, because it is a lot, and here we all are, 91 days in, somehow it feels longer, doesn't it? And 150 executive orders in, and we're very happy that our Attorney General is filing lawsuits with respect to many of those executive orders, but there is so much more that is happening that we are doing in a very productive and positive way to fight back, and that's why I wanted to come and talk about it. And I'm so happy that some of our legislative partners are here, the President of the Senate that I have the privilege of serving with, Senator Looney, and Representative Sweet. Thank you for being with us in this fight. So I'll start with this, that we are about expanding rights in Connecticut, not contracting them. And we said the day after the election that Connecticut values are the same, that we're going to be fighting for reproductive rights, for LGBTQ plus rights, for labor rights, for immigrant rights. And so that's what we are doing, and that is how, ladies and gentlemen, we are leading. So we passed the Reproductive Freedom Act to make sure that people who live in states outside of Connecticut where abortion is restricted or banned can come to Connecticut. And indeed, Planned Parenthood of Southern Connecticut has seen more people coming from out of state to get basic health care, and that's probably why Donald Trump has targeted them and cut them nearly $2 million, and that agency provides 41,000 people across the state with health care, not abortion. I'm talking about cancer screenings for STDs, and other basic preventative health care that if you address it sooner rather than later, ends up costing much less, and you get much better outcomes. We are also, the governor and I, supporting legislation to open up our constitution and expand reproductive rights and put that into our equal protection clause of the Connecticut Constitution. So in essence, we are broadening our Roe versus Wade statute and putting it into the state constitution and making sure that our equal protection clause also applies to the LGBTQ plus community so they can access reproductive health care as well. And so we can't wait for our legislative partners to pass that so all of us will have the opportunity to weigh in, because whenever we ask voters, do you want to protect reproductive rights, they always say yes. It doesn't matter whether it's a red state or a blue state, that's the answer. We've also passed legislation allowing pharmacists to provide reproductive health care by prescribing contraceptives, which is really important because most people live within a couple of miles of a pharmacy. And that makes healthcare so much more accessible. Imagine having to make a doctor's appointment, you know how long that takes. You may have to travel, you may have to get off from work. So we've been all about making rights more accessible, not less accessible like the Trump administration. I also want to mention voting rights because our Secretary of State has been very successful in getting early voting passed, and now we also have universal absentee ballot voting, which is going to make voting much more accessible. And we have passed the John Lewis Voting Rights Act, so we have among the toughest voting rights acts that actually protects voter rights. And I contrast that with the Trump administration. They've got the SAVE Act. They want to limit who can vote, make it more difficult, especially for women to vote, right? These are hard-fought rights that the president is trying to take away, and in our state, we are doing our very best to expand those rights. Also, on the labor front, the governor and I have proposed legislation to help the many people who work at huge distribution centers like Amazon, where there are quotas, you can't even go to the bathroom or have a meal. And so we've introduced that because the NLRB has been decimated under Donald Trump. And so we need to continue to lead in the labor rights area. And we're also considering legislation to expand the Trust Act to protect our immigrant communities. And we want people to understand it's safe to send your kids to school, right? Schools are safe places. And we can see that communities have families that aren't sending their kids to school because they're afraid of deportation. And so the governor and I have been very clear, our public schools are safe, protected spaces, and kids should come to learn. So we want you to know that as well. And we put our money where our values are. So a couple of weeks ago, the legislature sent 40 million extra special ed dollars to towns and cities across the state. And when we did that, we also gave an extra $800,000 to Planned Parenthood and to many LGBTQ plus organizations that are trying to protect our trans youth that are getting targeted and attacked. So there were 6 LGBTQ plus agencies that received money, along with Siri and Iris, which are wonderful agencies that are doing a lot of work to help our immigrant communities. So I wanted to let you know about that. The other thing that we're all facing as communities are making their city budgets, well, we are making our state budgets. And we are doing that in a bit of a vacuum because we don't know what federal cuts are coming, and we probably will not know until after June 4th. But I'm here to tell you that we have passed 6 balanced budgets. We're working on our 7th balanced budget. We've been able to pay down $8 billion in debt, which has allowed us to invest $750 million in things that uplift families, like job training, like free community college, like expanded early childhood spots, so both parents can work if they would like. And we have a very healthy rainy day fund of $4 billion. So the question is going to be, when we finally see what budget Congress comes up with, and we will see how much we're going to have cut. And I got to tell you, the Medicaid cuts are extremely scary because right now in our state, 900,000 people in our state have Medicaid as their insurance. So that's literally close to a third of our state's population. So to lose any of Medicaid programs for pregnant moms, for kids, for our elderly, for veterans, would literally be catastrophic. So that's why we feel like we're in a good place in that we have $4 billion in our rainy day fund, but we have to see what the federal cuts are going to be. So far, we've seen $150 million cut to our public health agencies for things like vaccinations. And we have seen another $6 million cut for EV charging stations. Private companies have reported about $180 million cut from contracts that they've had with the federal government, but we don't know the full extent of federal cuts, and we're probably not going to know them till the summer or early fall. So we're going to be about making our budget, but we will obviously have to adjust after June 4th, maybe later in the summer, maybe in the early fall, when we see what happens. Our focus has been trying to make the state more affordable. I mentioned Free Communities College. Senator Maloney has been a champion of an insulin cap, so people don't have to pay more than $30 a month for insulin, which is a life-saving drug. The governor and I have put forward a proposal to make early childhood education free for families that make $100,000 or less, and not more than $100 a week per child if a family makes $150,000 or less. And that is transformational because early child care costs can be for several kids like a college education, and encourages some parents not to work. And we know who that is. It's usually the female who says, okay, I'll stay home with the kids, right? So this is one thing that we think is really important for the infrastructure of our economy to help get people back to work. Also, something that uplifts families, right, and makes them more productive. And I would contrast all of those things with the tariffs that Trump has proposed, which would cost families an estimated $4,000 a year, if those fully went into effect. The other thing I wanted to address is this obsession that the president has with diversity, equity, and inclusion, right? And I'll tell you, in our state, Governor and I believe in diversity, equity, and inclusion. That's why half of our commissioners are women. Over a third are people of color. This is how we got through the pandemic, because we had diverse people at the table who brought their life experience and helped us get out of that big mess that we were in. And so we think diversity, equity, inclusion makes us stronger. About 2 months ago, we hired someone who is our chief talent officer. She is our DEI head for the state of Connecticut, and it's her job to search out the very best talent for all the openings that we have at the state level. And so we are so very proud of that, and we're going to continue in that effort, and we will not sign, certificates like the president wanted us to sign to say that our public schools, we're not going to have diverse and equitable inclusionary programs, right? Our commissioner said, hey, whatever we do in our State Department of Education in partnership with our towns will be in compliance with the United States Constitution and with our state laws. So we're going to keep doing that. And the final thing that I want to say is, I wake up every morning and I think, are we not so blessed in Connecticut that we have a leader in Governor Lamont who is competent, he's compassionate, he's a smart, steady leader, and he is about making sure that the people of Connecticut are taken care of, and he is not about creating chaos and division. He's about creating equity and opportunity for all of us in our state. So I know it's all a lot, but I wanted to come today to just tell you a little bit about what we're doing to fight back, because I think it's important. I have to say, it was so empowering and exciting to go to the hands-off rallies and literally see 2,000 people on the Guilford Green, or 600 people in a park in Newtown, or thousands of people at our state capitol who came out to show that they were standing up, that they were speaking out. So I think that we have a recruitment opportunity for our local elections to recruit candidates. You already have lots of candidates, and that is a good thing, right? We need more volunteers, right? You may need other candidates, so this is a good thing, right? And I think so many people want to do something. We should just let people know that we have local elections coming up, because you don't have to go far to help. You just have to show up in your own community. There is so much to do. Whether it's run for office, help a candidate you believe in, go volunteer for an organization. I was at Connecticut Food Share in Wallingford today, and the federal government has cut the food that they drop off routinely, and it's food valued at nearly $2 million. You know, it's so disheartening, but with every challenge, there's an opportunity for all of us to step forward and help. So happy, Mr. Chair, to just talk about whatever. I tried to just kind of give a thumbnail because I know there's a lot.
Thank you so much. If this makes sense in the interest of time, you know, usually we update from our elected officials. And so for our state delegation, like to hear from them, so we have Senator Looney here, maybe we get all of you up, and then we'll have Lori Sweet come up. And this way, questions can be directed at all of you.
Oh, good, they can help. Come on up.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. It's always great to be in a program with our Lieutenant Governor. We work closely with all the time in the state Senate. As Lieutenant Governor Weissowitz said, we are now at the point in the session where the governor's budget was presented in February. Our Appropriations and Finance Committees will be voting the legislative budget this week, and then there will be a period of negotiation thereafter where we will adopt the final legislative budget sometime before adjournment on June 4th. But this year is a year unlike any other. We're going to be waiting for the tsunami to hit, which is the full amount of federal cuts that we may be facing. That number may not be clear until the fall, because remember, the federal fiscal year begins on October 1st, and ours is July 1st. So we are likely to be in session again in September when we react in full to the full federal cuts. And the major one, as Lieutenant Governor mentioned, is the biggest potential one that could do the most harm, although there are many that could in varying degrees, but Medicaid. And we don't know how severe that will be. One of the most severe options that we've heard the administration is considering is to look at all of those states, and they're primarily blue states, who took advantage of the opportunity in the Obama and Biden administrations to expand Medicaid coverage under the Affordable Care Act. And the federal government provided an incentive to do that by raising the reimbursement rate from 50%, which is the standard rate for Medicaid, which is usually state and federal, 50% each, but to cover up to 90% of the expansion. It seems possible that the Trump administration may want to cut back that 90 to the standard 50, which will affect primarily blue states, because many of the red states never did take advantage of the expansion. If that were to happen, it would cost the state of Connecticut about $800 million. It would be a sucking hole in our budget that it would be difficult to cope with or adequately backfill. We already know that there have been major cuts in public health. We're worried about cuts in education. We know that the federal government wants to dismantle the entire Department of Education under Linda McMahon. There have already been announced cuts. Title I, Title II, Title III, Pell Grants, perhaps many other grants. The real concern is that so many of those cuts would affect low and moderate income school districts where there are federal dollars for reading specialists and English as a second language teachers and a whole lot of other things in the federal share of special education. All of that is at risk, and it would hit towns like Hamden hard, like New Haven hard. I'm sure Mayor Garrett could tell us how many positions in Hamden town government are federally funded. I know that's an impact there, and also the Board of Ed. In New Haven, I was talking with Mayor Elliker, there were 200 positions in the New Haven Board of Ed that are federally funded, and another 80 in the non-education part of city government. So we are at risk in so many areas and under attack in so many areas. But At the same time, we do have substantial Democratic majorities in both chambers of the legislature, 102 to 49 in the House, 25 to 11 in the Senate. The Lieutenant Governor mentioned the bill about protecting warehouse workers. That's certainly a priority of labor in the state. Another number one priority is the bill that I've been sponsoring for a couple of years, and that would be to provide unemployment benefit for striking workers in long-term strikes. And I'm hoping that we can get that through the whole process this year, especially now. It's even more important than it was last year, because last year we still had a relatively friendly National Labor Relations Board, because we had President Biden in office. All that is gone, all that has changed, so that workers now need additional protections at the state level, and that's why that bill is even more important to pass this year. But there are so many issues in which we are under siege. One of the things we are looking at is special education. We all know that that's a problem for towns of all sizes and all degrees of wealth, because as you know, an expensive special ed placement under the town's obligation at any time without any notice as a family moves into the district. And special ed costs are increasing. The number of children designated as special ed are increasing, partly because of COVID and the loss of time and the disruption there, partly because of other issues, and partly because of, in many cases, children coming to school with inadequate preparation for kindergarten, struggling in school, being labeled as special ed for that reason. So that a dozen years ago, about 12% of the kids in the schools were labeled as special ed. It's now 18%, but in some districts it's as high as 30%. And that is a huge and growing problem. We have a new committee of the General Assembly this year looking into issues related to special education and special education costs and ways to try to get a handle on that, and also to deal with it more fairly and equitably. So this year is a year unlike any others. And one of our major concerns, we're working closely with Attorney General Tom on this, is that he is part of a group of Democratic attorneys general who have filed challenges to many of the cuts that the Trump administration has announced. They're attacking on many fronts. The problem is that given Trump's lack of respect for virtually anything in terms of governmental traditions, we don't know in the end whether he would even abide by the decision of the U.S. Supreme Court. If that happens, our democracy goes over a cliff for good. He's already given signs of that with his pushback against the Supreme Court order about the forced deportation of people to El Salvador, and in one case, the man from Maryland. And we know that that provision, which we rely on so much, the provision of what's called judicial review, meaning the power of the Supreme Court to declare what is or is not constitutional, and to potentially declare unconstitutional an act of Congress or an act of the state legislature, that is part of our political tradition. It is not in the language of the Constitution itself, despite the fact we relied upon it since 1803, the case of Marbury versus Madison, where then Chief Justice John Marshall declared a portion of the Federal Judiciary Act of 1789 to be unconstitutional against the wishes of President Jefferson, who, however, acquiesced in that. And from that point on, it was established that the Supreme Court would be the ultimate arbiter of constitutionality. Only one president until now has defied that, and that was President Andrew Jackson in 1832, when in a case having to do with some issues related to the forced migration of Native American tribes. Jackson said, when opposed by Chief Justice Marshall, he said, John Marshall has issued his decision, let him enforce it. And of course, we know that court decisions are not self-enforcing. They have to depend upon the goodwill of the other branches of government, the executive in particular. So we don't know what will happen ultimately should the Trump administration defy the ruling of the U.S. Supreme Court. One of the more insidious ways that Trump could do it is we don't know whether that his administration might have an ex parte communication with the Supreme Court and tell them in advance, if you rule against us, we'll ignore it. So if you want to maintain the fig leaf of your authority in our current system, don't rule against us. So that's another thing that could happen. It would be just about as damaging as the direct defiance. So all bets are off. We are dealing with something completely unprecedented. We are recognizing that there will have to be some substantial changes to the so-called guardrails, the spending cap, and also the volatility cap, which we adopted a number of years ago. So we are actually in better shape than many other states, because we do have a more substantial budget reserve fund than most other states. That $4 billion is almost 18% of our general fund revenues, and we have been disciplined over the last 8 years in building it up, maintaining it, paying down our pension obligations to both teachers and state employees, and building up that budget reserve fund. When Governor Malloy came into office in January of 2011, the budget reserve fund was zero. The last amount of it had been used up in the last year of the Rowell administration, because that was at the time we were in the throes of the terrible recession that started in 2008. So we made substantial progress since then. So now we're in a position where we do have some resources to backfill and to fill in for federal cuts. But at the same time, we have to realize that the Trump administration's policies may be about to cause a recession, and a substantial part of that budget reserve may be needed to deal with the consequences of the recession as well. If our revenues start to decline, we have a shortfall. So where we draw the line in terms of volatility cap revenue and budget reserve revenue, we have to find the right spot between how much we can spend to deal with the emergency and how much we still have to keep in reserve in case there is a recession just around the corner caused by President Trump's policies. And the other issue, of course, is that we're working with the Attorney General on this as well. There is concern about potential price gouging even before tariffs take effect. We know that some businesses, under the cover of rumor tariffs, will start raising prices and say it's all about tariffs. But it may not be all about tariffs. We saw the same thing happen when many companies were raising their prices using the excuse of the supply chain issues during the COVID pandemic. And in many cases, that wasn't really real, but it was an excuse for prices that went up and didn't come down once the crisis of the supply chain was dealt with. So we need vigilance on that score as well. So we're operating on many fronts. It's always great to be here with you in Hamden. This is the most grim session we have ever had, but I think we are still in better shape than many other states because of our fiscal posture up to now. But I want to commend the Hamden DTC for being active and engaged and turning out in great numbers is always the case. And we'd like to invite Representative Sweet to come up now with perspective from the House of Representatives.
Any good news?
Yeah. I've got to thank Councilman Gallagher for co-hosting the housing forum on Monday evening, and thank you, Brian Murphy, for making sure that we can have an online presence as well. Just to backtrack on that, our Housing as a Human Right resolution asked the state delegation to put in just cause and a decriminalized homeless bill, and we did that. And so this is a continuation of that conversation. And I want to thank our own Caitlin Rose and Alex Cole-Patronis for being panelists, subject matter expert panelists for that evening. It was a really great night. I've got a film screening coming up this Friday in Hartford. It is going to be in the LOB, room 1B. We're going to be screening Where Then Shall We Go as part of the End Homelessness Caucus. If you can't make it to Hartford, we'll also be screening that movie in Hamden on Sunday at 1 p.m. I can give you more information about that. I want to just shout out some of our DTC members who I got to see on Kappa Alpha Day, Tamika and Lynette, so it was great to see you up there in Hartford. We had only one session day so far on the 9th where we got to vote on Marissa Gillette to continue being part of CARA. Tomorrow I'm going to be hosting the Sunrise Students at the Capitol. I'm really looking forward to that. I've recently spoken at the rally for the Trust Act and Housing for All. I was able to come to Representative Elliott's Tax Day press conference, which was great to talk about tax equity. And finally, the freshman, I'm a freshman, and myself wrote a op-ed on the child tax credit. So that's what we're going to do.
So what I'm going to ask is, if you have a question, rather just in the interest of time, keep it brief, but you can yell it out, and I'm going to ask for whoever wants to little bit just to sort of restate it so everyone can hear it on the MI. Okay? Yes.
This question is really coming Governor. First of all, thank you so much for coming. As you can see, Hamden is very passionate about democracy.
Love it.
So I have a question on the fiscal guardrails. We're clearly in a crisis. We have to figure out what's going to happen tonight because I've heard how some people are talking about potentially pulling from, our robust budget reserve fund. There was also talks on, amending the guardrails. So I've heard a bunch of, conversations on this. And so I wanted to get your thoughts on the fiscal guardrails and if you think that they need amending, both because of what's happening at the federal level and also in general, are the guardrails set correctly?
So the governor in his State of the State address in February said that he was open to having a conversation on the volatility cap. And the volatility cap was set to try to smooth out when the stock market goes up, goes down, and he was willing to have that conversation, but that was before we had the suggestion of very catastrophic cuts like Medicaid, Department of Education, the list goes on. So I think the governor's position is that we're gonna see, because the good news is we have $4 billion in the rainy day fund, but that only gets you so far, depending on how big the cuts are. So I think the governor is open to modifying the volatility cap and perhaps the guardrails, depending on the magnitude of the cuts, and we're gonna know better probably summer, early fall, when we see the new budget, because we're not gonna let people go without basic health care. And I think the message is that we've seen this movie before, and the movie was Trump 1.0. He wanted to get rid of the Affordable Care Act. And people all over the country, even in red states, stood up and said no. And so, because there are so many red states that are in a much deeper fiscal crisis than we are, they need to stand up. I think Senator Looney alluded to this. They need to stand up and say, no, we need Medicaid, we need the Affordable Care Act, we need federal funding, and so far it's been crickets, but maybe when they see the real proposals, they're gonna stand up.
Anyone else? Yes.
So, I wanna know, so what Trump is doing to education in regards to what he did to Columbia and how they acquiesced to his demand, but Harvard did not. And, Harvard is trying to sue the Trump administration, and I know they have a huge indictment. I wanna know if this is gonna come after Yale University, and if he does, what do you think Yale will do? Do you think Yale would? Because it seems like he's going after.
So here's what we know. The University of Connecticut has about $200 million. Sorry. We know that the University of Connecticut has about $200 million in federal research grants that they are worried about losing, and that's 2,600 people. I know Yale probably has more people involved in terms of, professors, grad students who have research, and probably more of a dollar amount, but also our state colleges and universities have funding as well. So this is just a huge problem, and we all should care, because these universities are doing research on cures for cancer, Alzheimer's, and that's right. It's not just education; it's innovation, science.
So does he get to pick and choose what universities he wants to defund and what, unless we have
And Elon Musk, a tech bro billionaire, just has a pen and is crossing stuff out. Just he wasn't elected to anything, and the US Senate didn't confirm him to anything, right? I had better news on that one, but every college and university, state, private, all efforts, big time.
Yeah, a couple of things on that. There are really two separate issues here regarding what Trump is threatening to do to higher ed. One is, as the Lieutenant Governor said, the cutting of grants to the National Science Foundation grants or National Institutes of Health grants. All major research universities have at least some grants in that category. UConn has some, Yale has a lot, and he has already talked about cutting, or he has cut already, what's called the indirect costs, or some of the ancillary costs for infrastructure to support the grant work, is being cut back a lot, which is a real problem in and of itself, and is going to mean that in many cases research will be delayed, as the Lieutenant Governor said. Research staff will be laid off or moved from full-time to part-time, and other supportive resources will be cut, if not eliminated altogether. That's one problem. The other problem, which is really really shocking and insidious, is the Trump administration's attack on the academic freedom of universities. Wholly apart from the idea of cutting research grants, but saying that he wants to basically see what their admissions priorities are, to make sure they're not doing diversity admissions, to look at what the faculty is teaching. In Columbia, he actually demanded, and they acquiesced, in basically giving his administration oversight of an academic department. So Columbia, I think, is a complete disgrace because of its capitulation and collapse in that regard. Harvard is to be praised because of its standing up and defiance. What we don't know is what the other major the Ivy League institutions, their peers, and others around the country that at elite level, how they're going to react. And really, they should be banding together to figure a common response rather than wait to be attacked one by one by one. Now, the Yale president has given a partial response. I saw on MSNBC last week. She said that when asked what Yale would do, she said the response would be context specific. But I don't know what that means, but she's going to have to provide more detail. But the answer is for the other 6 Ivy League schools outside of Harvard and Columbia, and MIT and NYU and Duke and Stanford and all of the other major private universities, apart from the major state universities, I think need to coalesce and to have a standard response, because bullies attack one at a time, and when you link together, you can have a strong defense. Part of the problems I've been hearing is that some of the universities in red states are kind of going around the back door and telling the Trump administration, yeah, cut their grants and send it to us instead, which is another insidious way of trying to take advantage of the situation that's going on. So there are lots of threatening things going on.
And the other thing I think is important is we need to support all of the federal agencies like the Food and Drug Administration, the National Institute of Health, Department of Energy, because all of those agencies in turn give funding to research universities, right? So Trump's doing everything. He's cutting university funding and college funding, but he's also cutting those agencies that are the ones that are sponsoring the research.
Gary?
Yeah, I just wanted to mention, I don't know if everybody's aware, my name's Gary Tinney, but there's been a lot of cuts pertaining to the fire service, fire prevention, community risk reduction. I mean, millions and millions of dollars have been taken away. Just recently at the National Fire Academy, women in the fire service had a scheduled workshop, training during, I think it was in May, and that was canceled due to DEI initiatives that they were received that way. NIOSH plays a major part in our safety in the fire service, especially when due to cancer. A lot of those funds that affected the folks that were survived 9/11. I mean, I can go on and on and on. So if anybody, if you get a chance, do the research on what's happening and how, what impact, especially around fire prevention too. Fortunately, we have partners around the country that we work with pertaining to fire prevention and women in the fire service. All those things, if he sees that this administration identifies anything as diversity, equity, and inclusion, he's going to cut the funds. But I mean, when it comes down to cancer and the lives that the folks that have saved us, the heroes in our community, they lot from, not only individual, but administrators. So if you get a chance, take a look at that stuff. It's really mind-blowing.
If I might add on that, just one thing that the Governor Lamont and Lieutenant Governor Vicewitz were very strong supporters and leaders on the issue that we had in Connecticut. I'm pleased we passed it in the General Assembly to be aware of the increasing prevalence of cancer among firefighters and also to create a presumption in terms of workers' compensation law that cancer in firefighters is in fact work-related. So that was a real advantage, I think, in terms of our workers' comp law. Of course, right, absolutely right.
Yeah, and also, we are providing free cancer screening for firefighters, recognizing that, but that is very maddening to hear, Gary.
All right, thank you. If there are no more questions, we'll move it on to, we'll let. Thank you very much. Thank you. All right, update from Mayor Garrett, and what we're gonna do is similar fashion. We'll get all of our local officials, let them come up, and our election officials, Rashonda and Karima, and I think we have Peter here from the Board of Ed, and then you can throw questions at all, just in the interest of time.
Okay, so we've been doing a lot of work lately, and tomorrow there's a legislative council meeting. We have a few things going on the agenda for that. One is a resolution naming the animal shelter after Lynn Young.
Turn it up. We can't hear you over here. I can't.
All right, I'll try again a little louder. All right, so there's a council meeting tomorrow, and we have a few things going forward to the legislative council. One is a resolution naming the animal shelter after Lenny Young and Loris Jamie. And so Lenny died, I think the week before last week. And he is a longtime animal advocate. Started the animal shelter gift fund with the finance director at the time, and just a really wonderful person. So that's the way to legislative council. We have a few grants that we are applying for through the state, and so those resolutions are going to the council as well, so that we can apply for those grants. One is for a Dixwell reconnection grant. So this is a joint application with the city of New Haven. It is for economic development improvements, affordable housing, pedestrian and traffic improvements along the Dixwell corridor. It's a $10 million request that is joint between Hamden and New Haven. And this follows the bus rapid transit corridor, so it really takes advantage of the work that's being done for that and expanding on it. We also have a grant application that is both to SIF, the Community Investment Fund, and the State Bond Commission for New Home Foundation's construction program. So we've been doing a lot of work with State Rep Sweet and State Rep Winter to figure out the best path for us. And so we worked with the House Dems bonding clerk to really navigate a way forward for us. And so we are submitting 2 grant applications. One is to regular State Bond Commission, and the other one is to the Community Investment Fund. And we'll take whichever one the state gives us. Really, we're just trying to cover all bases and make sure that we are giving the state every opportunity to give us money. We have Earth Day on Saturday from 10 to 3. We should have a good time over at Town Center Park. There are a lot of different organizations that will be tabling, a lot of great information. Joe Gracie, our recycling coordinator, puts a ton of work into the Earth Day celebration that we have. So I encourage you to attend. It's a great time to get outside and enjoy nature and sunshine, hopefully. I'm hosting a budget public meeting on Thursday at Thornton from 6:30 to 9:30. And we'll be covering a lot of questions from the audience, a lot of kind of frequently asked questions that I'm seeing pop up, and it's a chance for residents to come out and talk about how taxes are impacting them and what some strategies are ahead. I'm sure a lot of people saw the press release from last week. We have a mill rate correction that reduces the mill rate further, an additional 3.22 mils. There's a total reduction of 12.22 mils, with my recommended mill rate coming in at 43.39. It's a correction from the finance department that the error was found in the way that the grad list was added up. And so it's good news, but we wanted to make sure that we acknowledge the error. We have a few projects that you'll see around Hamden pretty soon, probably this summer. The Farmington Canal has improvements that are being made by DOT. These are at the first 4 crossings coming from New Haven up the Farmington Canal, so Goodrich, Edwards, there are a few streets in that area. I think it goes up to Morris. So that is for safety improvements at the canal crossings where the roadway is. So it's a raised crosswalk with flashing beacons so that cars can see that people are crossing the Farmington or crossing the roadway from Farmington Canal. We're going out to bid this spring on renovating our tennis courts at the high school. The design is completed in-house and we're working with procurement to get that out to bid. We have a pavilion that's going outside of the senior center. It expands upon the space that we have at the senior center to provide an outdoor area for our seniors. This is ARPA funding that came from the state. So it wasn't ARPA that came to the town, it was directed by the state to senior centers. We have Gilbert traffic calming. This is the state community connectivity grant, and it's for sidewalks and speed humps on Gilbert. So we're working on the design right now. It's a great opportunity with some money from DOT to help us improve pedestrian and traffic safety. We have traffic calming coming up this spring and summer on Leader Hill, Rochford, Veracruz, and West Town. And we have 4 bridge replacements that we're working on. 2 which are Wheat and Mather. We have to coordinate with RWA on that. And then Willow Street is fully state funded, but there's a lot of paperwork that comes through the town. And then also Chatterton Way is another bridge replacement that we're working on. So a lot of really cool stuff happening in town, and it's kind of a really exciting time. The funding that we've all been working to get through the state and the federal government is finally coming to fruition with a lot of construction. So you're going to see a lot of activity this summer.
All right, thank you. Council President Dominique Baez.
Hello, hello. Hi, everyone. How are you doing tonight? Dominique Baez, I'm your legislative council president. We have a lot on our plate, right? So we are continuing on our budget deliberation schedule. And while we're doing that, we are also doing our regular council business. So good luck, Ms. Renee Hall. You are getting out of the frying pan into the fire, I tell you right now. So tomorrow we have a regular council meeting, and we will have that placement on our agenda. It's going to go through 2 runs, so it'll be the council of the whole committee, and then we'll do a full council on our next meeting. As well, we have Wednesday is our next budget meeting, and the regular business that we're seeing are lots of ordinances, right? We're going to be finishing up our public hearings, voting on our ordinances, making any amendments that we might have as a council, and then we have things like approving or denying transfers and bond ordinances and that sort of thing. And then we have an expanse on our special committees. So we just had another special committee meeting where we're looking to break out our committees into smaller groups so we can have more back and forth conversation that's not so much permissible during our full council meeting. So we just had our special finance committee meeting. We're looking to have more of our committees break out to have those conversations. On top of that, our budget stuff is going through, right? We are looking to extend our budget period via a charter amendment that specifically says, let's give ourselves a little bit more time to go over the budget deliberation period. And we have an investigation on how our phase-in options are looking. And we are obviously cutting away after we have presentations from our departments regarding this budget. And we are we are begging the state to expand and extend when we have to put into our revow. So, right, folks experience our reassessment on their homes, I believe. Everyone had one of those, right? You saw it was pretty extreme. That extreme reassessment across the town has really left us lopsided. So we are asking the government, the state government, very nicely, can we push off that reevaluation and its results until next year when we can better research our fees and options and how it affects our residents. So that's what we're handling right now, and if you have questions or if you want to talk to us, you know where to find us. All right, I'm going to give this over to Peter.
Peter Donner from the Board of Ed. Thanks.
Hi, Peter Donner. I am the Secretary of the Board of Ed, and so we had our regular meeting. And I was thinking about the first hour or whatever of this meeting, and so I decided I gotta find things that are really cool that's happening in school to share. So the board recently approved an ongoing student exchange program with students from Italy, so that's going on. We approved the EHSU to historically black colleges and university tour field trip that they get to do in April 7th through the 10th. And then we expanded the ECE courses at the UConn Spanish course. We did a whole bunch of policies that are in first read where we restructured restorative practices, the school climate policy, which we actually had to adopt because it was required by the state, word for word. So we did exactly what we were told to do. But it also had us reorganize school safety policy, bullying prevention and intervention policy, and all of that. We also were able to go to the Legislative Council to answer questions and be present for our budget. I'm particularly proud of that because many members of the Board of Ed were there. It is my understanding that often sometimes the board members didn't show up. It was just the superintendent and the chief financial officer, but we had 4 board members there, I think, and most of the finance committee was there. And so for me, that's healthy, open, transparent dialogue that I appreciate. And that's it from the board. And if you have any questions, I'm interested.
Why don't you stay up here, Peter? He's going to have any questions for you. All right.
I'll be quick. So good evening, everyone. I am Prima, the town clerk. So let's see what's going on in the town clerk's office. We've been busy because we've had a number of people who have put their hat in as candidates for mayor, so that information is processed in my office. So if anyone is interested in seeing that information, it is available in our office. Currently, I don't have any of that scanned and able to get it to you electronically, but if you want to come in anytime between 8:45 and 4:15, it is available. Let's see, we're ramping up for elections. We did recently launch the civic clerk, and then we've been kind of moving through that. I don't know, has anyone interacted with it or had any challenges or feedback that you'd like to provide as it relates to it? Okay, good. But we have seen people are getting more comfortable with it. There are some things that we're working through from a process perspective, but that's with anything that we launch. That's it. I mean, there's lots going on, but I'll be back next month, and the closer we get to things, what we're doing, all the many things that we handle in the town clerk's office. If you ever have any questions, please feel free to reach out.
Thank you.
Good evening,
everyone. I'm Sean Howard, registered voters. I will be very brief. The last time I spoke with you all, I talked about two bills that were being presented to the Senate and House, and at that time I didn't have numbers for the bills. Well, I have numbers now. So the first bill is SB 1535. It's 10 different parts, but the main parts that the Register of Voters Office and our legislative committee is focusing on is number 3, which will eliminate the use of envelopes for early voting ballots and allow such ballots to be deposited directly into the tabulators. That bill has been placed on the Senate calendar. The Register of Voters Association, we are in agreement with some modifications. One of the modifications being that in Hamden we have 9 districts with 18 precincts. And there's a law that went into effect on January 2025 that states that every precinct has to have its own tabulator. So if this law passed the way that it is right now, when you walk into Thornton Wilder for early voting, you're gonna see 18 tabulators lined up. When one tabulator can actually be programmed to count 18 precincts. So that's the modification that we're hoping to have with that one. The second one that we are looking at is HB 7228, which is on the House calendar. It's 12 parts, but we're looking at number 5. Well, I'm looking at number 5 particularly, which is to provide that petition forms for candidacies for municipal offices are available from the Secretary of State's office instead of the Register of Voters office. So that means when all of these candidates that are not endorsed are coming for petitions, they won't be coming to my office. They'll be going to the Secretary of State if this law passes. The second part of it is number 12, which will appropriate funds to the Office of the Secretary of State for early voting purposes. So those are the 2 bills that we are looking at. And that's all I have. Any questions? Thank you.
And so if you want to speak in favor of those bills or write something in favor of those bills, you can go on the CDA website and do that from there. Okay? All right, does anyone have any questions for anyone up here? All right, I think everyone's looking at the clock, so I know it's gone a little bit, but we have a couple more quick things to do. One is I asked Kyle to come here today to talk about Eli's Garden Feeling upcoming event. We're also going to get to our issues committee, and then Dan wants to say a few words as well.
Thank you. Good evening, everybody. Can you hear me all right? Yes. Thanks for sticking around for so long. I'm not a politician, so I'll be quick.
I love him already. I love it.
So I want to talk just a couple minutes about our organization and an event that's coming up on May 3rd. 3 years ago, my wife and my nephew Elijah was shot and killed in Hamden, Elijah Gomez. So we started a nonprofit to help people overcome trauma from violent events, survivors, and also victims. We call that nonprofit Eli's Garden Feeling. So we have programming. We're looking to also create a actual physical garden at Dean and Fuller Park on Treadwell, where people can go. It's going to be a dedicated space where people can overcome these traumatic events. So May 3rd, this coming May 3rd, Elijah would have been 18. So we're having a party in the park for Elijah, but also for all of us, because we're enduring. The violence continues, unfortunately, globally, nationally. New Haven. Aaron Robinson, last week, he was 15, he was shot and killed. Same age as Elijah. So, May 3rd, Dean and Fuller Park, Treadwell Street, we're going to have fun. We're going to have a DJ, we're going to have a bounce house, we're going to have face painting, we're going to have arts and crafts, we're going to have booths and tables from some community resources that you are probably already aware of, but they're going to be there. As the Lieutenant Governor said, you don't have to go far to help. So I'm telling you today, if you're in the room, if you're online, you only have to go as far as Troyville Street this May 3rd to help a little bit. Come support us. Come support the community, meet some neighbors, and meet some people that you don't know yet, some friends. And hope for some good weather because there is no rain date. So, May 3rd, in Gold Park. We'll see you there. 11 to 4.
How can we support financially?
You can support financially. You can support financially through the website, elisgardenhealing.com. If you go to our Instagram, there's plenty of ways there. Facebook, it'll direct you all towards our donation possibilities there. Also, a great day that's coming up, and there's a lot of good organizations that they can use help, especially now. Good question. Thank you.
Thank you very much. All right, and then call Bradford, and then I'm going to call Dan. And I'm going to ask, I know it's a late hour, but I'm going to ask folks to, if you have time to linger afterwards, we have candidates in the room, so you can linger and have some good conversations after we're done with the formal part of the meeting.
All right, thank you, Sean. So I'm Bradford Murillo, Chair of the Issues Committee. I just want to say that right now we have 9 members, looking for one more. Very happy with how many people have joined over the past couple of months. It would be nice to have a full committee. So if you are interested, please contact me, Sean, to finally fill out the committee to its full desired capacity. So exactly what it is. Give a quick recap of our last meeting. Meeting discussion began with welcoming our newest member, Tracy Owens. The majority of the meeting was then on Newhall. A rough draft addressing the Newhall situation was gone through paragraph by paragraph, typos and content changes as approved. Several votes were held within the meeting regarding what we wish to convey within the document, particularly in reference to dates and the new community center and how we wanted to reference those in the document. We offer special thanks to Dan Hoffman and Rabbi Skolnick and Seth Rosenthal for their combined efforts at drafting and editing. I also wanted to note that the Newhall document has been submitted for e-board review in addition to the Six Lakes document. The Six Lakes document was submitted in February, hoping that the next e-board meeting, both documents can be reviewed. Perhaps we can extend the meeting to facilitate the speed of that to the documents getting passed. I know Chris Ashley is working on the DTC website right now. He told me this evening that we might have a forum up and running, so I'm very happy to report that there's some progress there. One of the issues we can control the communications on that forum, perhaps in a private way, so we can migrate to that from email, which is a little bit cumbersome. I know a lot of email changes, which is not fun. But yeah, that's just the original record for our current issues. We were discussing some DTC rule changes. We can tell this evening that there's some discussion of how we follow the bylaws as a DTC. We're proposing 2 new modifications to our bylaws, and we are encouraging that we follow our bylaws rather than just go with how we usually do things, perhaps informally. Currently, we have our proposed rules being reviewed by State Central's attorney. We're waiting to hear back from them to finalize language, and that's something we'll vote, and then submit that to the board. An additional thing that we're working on, so the rule changes is in response to the Supreme Court anti-hurricane flags. In the future, we're hoping to do comments on housing is human right here in town, the budget, the evaluation. Hoping to discuss that next meeting to see how or if we want to handle that. If there's any updates regarding the solar farm, or any other issues that are going to the DTC, that's always up for discussion. One final point, regarding protests. So at our last meeting, the meeting before our most recent meeting, I found out that I neglected to say that we discussed protests. We discussed unanimously that the whole issues committee is in favor of a DTC sponsored protest. And Sean spoke to that a little bit after I got out of here. I'm hoping that we can get an update from Sean and the board as to the availability of any of our electeds to speak at a DTC sponsored rally. This is probably an excellent fundraising opportunity for us. That's it.
When's your next meeting?
I'm sorry, our next meeting is May 8th. And that's going to be at 7 p.m.
Thank you. And one more after Dan. Jen texted me. She has an update from State Central.
Very short.
Very brief, 5 for her. Yeah.
I'd like to talk about political contributions in our fragile democracy. AIPAC, the American Israel Public Affairs Committee, last election performed with brilliancy. AIPAC was 100% successful with their candidate selection. AIPAC is notorious for going after our black and brown politicians, especially women. AIPAC spent $8.8 million to unseat Cori Bush and over $10 million to get rid of Jamal Bowman. The reason both representatives were critical about our country's continued support of apartheid colonial state Israel. Connecticut Senator Richard Blumenthal received nearly $400,000 from AIPAC, and Junior Senator Chris Murphy received a little over $150,000. Representatives in Connecticut all received donations from pro-Israel political action committees, including JPAC. This includes Rosa DeLauro, Jim Hines, Johanna Hayes, Joe Courtney, and John Larson. Everyone mentioned has voted over the last 1.5 years to fund Israel and the ongoing atrocities that occur on a daily basis. The latest was a brutal killing of 15 aid workers. The IDF buried the bodies, buried the cars, said it was Hamas. Atrocities are repeated daily. Over the last 2 weeks, over 1,000 innocent women and children have been murdered by Israeli forces. If convicted war criminal Benjamin Netanyahu gets his wish, our next catastrophe will be invading Iran. To his credit, Senator Murphy has had enough. He, along with 15 others in the Senate, voted against selling more killer weapons to Israel. Why Senator Blumenthal continues to fund a convicted war criminal is criminal in itself. As a functioning DTC, Hamden needs to send a message: if you take contributions from pro-Israel PACs, you will no longer get the endorsement from our town committee. Thank you.
We get an update from Jen Hope.
Just really quick, I just wanted to remind everybody, Alexa sent out a couple of emails. There is a state party fundraiser on Friday. David Hogg is coming to speak. He's a Parkland shooting survivor. He's one of our DNC vice chairs. It is a fundraiser, so there is a cost to attend, but hopefully some folks can come out and speak. It's going to be in New Haven this Friday at 5:30. That's it.
All right, thank you. I guess you get the location once you confirm that you are going to that event.
Yes.
Right. Okay, good. Diane?
Thank you. I have a really quick update on the Denso Hill solar facility. The case between the Connecticut Siting Council and Lone Star Energy has been extended. The Connecticut Siting Council had until April 11th to respond to the Lone Star Energy Company brief. And the judge who is deciding this case is supposed to be holding a remote hearing set for June 2nd at 2 p.m.
right, thanks for the update, Diana. All right, we're ready to take the motion to adjourn?
Second.
All those in favor say aye. Aye. All right, we're adjourned.
His prayer. Biggest thing.
We're done.
Thank you.